My name is Mark Thompson. I'm 38 years old and work as a financial consultant. After years of hard work and careful saving, I finally reached the point where I could buy my own home. This was one of the biggest milestones in my life. I wanted a space that was entirely mine, a place where I could live freely and make my own rules. After spending years in rented apartments, I had grown tired of the restrictions that came with shared living. The thin walls, the constant noise from neighbors, the never-ending list of building regulations, it all felt suffocating. I craved the freedom of my own place, without the interference of nosy neighbors or shared responsibilities. That's why I had one non-negotiable condition for my new home: it had to be freehold. My search for the perfect property was long and challenging. In my area, most homes were sold as strata title properties, meaning shared ownership with strict regulations and joint decision-making. While these types of properties came with benefits like shared maintenance and insurance, they also came with countless rules and restrictions, the kind of limits I simply couldn't accept. I wanted a place where I could truly live on my own terms. Finally, after months of searching, I found it: a small but charming house with a little garden, large windows, and located on a quiet street. Most importantly, the property was listed as freehold. This meant it was fully mine, without the burden of shared ownership or restrictive community rules. The moment I saw it, I knew this was the home I had been searching for. It felt like a long-awaited reward for my years of patience and sacrifice. After finding the property, I reached out to a local real estate agent. I didn't know him personally, but we had a few mutual friends, and his name had come up in conversations before. This made me feel a bit more comfortable, as there was a certain level of familiarity. During our first meeting, I made it very clear that my main priority was owning a freehold property. He reassured me that this was indeed the case. He emphasized that the property was completely independent, with no shared ownership or strata obligations. His confidence in this fact made me feel even more certain that I had found the right place. Before making the final purchase, I consulted my lawyer to double-check all the paperwork. I wanted to be absolutely certain that there were no hidden surprises. My lawyer thoroughly reviewed the documents and confirmed that everything was in order. The title was clear, and the property was indeed registered as freehold. This final confirmation gave me the peace of mind I needed to proceed. In the first few weeks after moving in, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was my space, my sanctuary. I planted flowers in the small garden, filled the rooms with natural light, and decorated every corner to reflect my taste. It was a small but meaningful victory, a testament to my patience, hard work, and dedication. This house wasn't just a piece of property. It was a symbol of my independence, a space where I could finally live on my own terms, without interference or compromise. But as we all know, life rarely goes according to plan. The peaceful start to my new life was about to be shattered. Challenges were on the horizon, and soon enough, I would find myself tested in ways I never expected. Sometimes, even when you think you've finally found peace, life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you. And my real test was about to come knocking at my door. It was about 5 months after I moved in. It was a quiet Saturday morning. Sunlight streamed through my windows, and the flowers in my small garden swayed gently in the breeze. I sat on my porch, sipping my coffee and enjoying the peace of my new life. That's when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, I found my next-door neighbor standing there, the owner of the adjacent property. He was a middle-aged man with a serious expression, clutching a few documents in his hand. I noticed a slight tension in his eyes, a hint of unease that I couldn't quite place. "Sorry to bother you," he began, "but I wanted to discuss our shared insurance policy. This year's premiums have just come in, and I thought it would be good to go over the costs." I was caught off guard. Shared insurance. My property was registered as freehold, which meant I shouldn't be part of any shared insurance arrangement. That was the whole point of buying this particular property, to avoid the restrictions and costs associated with strata living. "I think there must be a mistake," I replied, trying to hide my growing concern. "My property is freehold. It shouldn't be part of a shared insurance policy. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Are you sure? Because this whole block is listed as a strata title, the insurance documents make that pretty clear. Those words sent a chill down my spine. I politely asked for a copy of the insurance policy, hoping it was just a misunderstanding. The neighbor, without hesitation, agreed. Of course, he said, pulling out his phone. I can send you a copy by email. The next morning, as I sat down for breakfast, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my neighbor. The subject line read, Strata Insurance Policy. My heart raced as I opened the attachment. There it was, in bold, unmistakable letters, Strata Title Insurance. The document clearly listed my property as part of a strata title arrangement. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. How could this be? I had been so careful. I had triple-checked every document, every line of fine print before buying this place. My lawyer had gone over the contracts and title deeds. Everything was supposed to be in order. I immediately called my lawyer, my hands shaking as I held the phone. When he answered, I barely let him say hello before launching into my frantic explanation. He listened carefully, then asked me to forward the insurance documents. After a few minutes, he called me back, his tone serious. This is a major problem, he said. The title documents we reviewed clearly stated your property was freehold. This insurance policy suggests otherwise. Either there's been a massive mistake, or someone deliberately misled you. That morning, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the insurance papers. My mind raced. Could it be a clerical error? Or had I been the victim of a deliberate deception? I decided to confront the real estate agent. I gathered every piece of evidence I had: emails, printed ads, title documents, and scheduled a meeting. When I walked into his office, I laid the papers out in front of him, one by one. These emails clearly state that my property is freehold, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. The title documents confirm it. So why am I holding a strata insurance policy? The agent barely glanced at the papers before leaning back in his chair. He fiddled with his pen, avoiding my eyes. These documents can sometimes be misunderstood, he said, his tone dismissive. It's possible you overlooked something. His words felt like a slap in the face. I had trusted this man. He had assured me over and over again that my property was freehold. And now he was acting as if this was all some minor misunderstanding. I considered taking the matter to court, but my health at the time made a long legal battle unwise. Instead, I opted for mediation. I thought it might be a quicker, less painful way to resolve the issue. At the mediation session, I made a simple request that the real estate agent cover the costs of selling my property when the time came to make up for his error. To me, this seemed fair. After all, I had invested years of my life and a significant amount of money into this home. But the agent refused. He offered me a mere $1,000 to drop the matter and move on. It was an insult, a pitiful attempt to brush me off and avoid responsibility. The mediator, a seasoned professional, even advised me to take legal action. But I simply couldn't afford the physical and emotional toll of a prolonged court battle. After that meeting, something inside me shifted. The disappointment and anger I felt began to harden into something darker, something more dangerous. I realized that if I couldn't find justice through the legal system, I would have to find my own way to set things right. I started doing my research. I found the agent's social media profiles. His Facebook page was wide open, full of photos from a recent trip, a boys on tour holiday he'd taken a few months earlier. His business registration records provided me with his home address. The pieces were starting to come together. I had the beginnings of a plan, one that would make him regret ever crossing me. This was just the start. The foundation for my revenge had been laid, and I was ready to see it through. That night, after the failed mediation session, I came home with only one thought in my mind: how did he get away with this? Years of savings, dreams, and the freedom I had worked so hard for had turned into a nightmare because of his lies. This thought echoed in my mind, keeping me awake until dawn. I sat down at my computer and began to dig into his social media profiles. Facebook was my starting point. To my surprise, I had access to far more information than I expected. Photos, comments, events, check-ins, it was all there. The little details people often overlook. The ones they think no one else notices were right in front of me. One album immediately caught my eye, Boys on Tour Summer Memories. It was filled with beach photos, bar nights, and carefree moments. But one detail stood out. A blonde woman who appeared in almost every group photo. She was always close to him, often with an arm draped over his shoulder or leaning in for a selfie. As I scrolled through the comments, I found her name, Rachel. A small but significant detail. Rachel was a potential weak point, someone from his past who could become a crucial part of my plan. I kept digging. Business records, tax filings, local business forms, even his LinkedIn profile. I found a comment he had left on a professional networking site, praising a particular brand of whiskey. Nothing beats a glass of whiskey brand after a long day. He had written, receiving a few approving responses from his colleagues. As I went deeper, I discovered even more. An old post mentioned a trip to Europe, something he described as the best summer of my life. He had included a few laughing emojis, perhaps trying to downplay the significance, but to me, it was a potential weakness. A crack in his carefully constructed facade. I began taking notes of the names of his friends, the bars he frequented, the vacations he bragged about, the small moments he thought were private but had broadcasted to the world. By the time the sun started to rise, I had a small but growing dossier on him. Every detail, every piece of trivia, every past mistake he had let slip on social media. It was all ammunition. This was just the beginning. I wasn't just going to inconvenience him or make him uncomfortable. I was going to dismantle his entire world, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but regret. The first step in my plan had to be subtle but powerful, something that would creep into his mind and plant the first seeds of doubt. It had to be personal, unexpected, and capable of breaking through the carefully constructed walls of his everyday life. I wanted him to feel a sense of unease, the kind that lingers even after the lights go out and the house is quiet. I decided to make my move on the anniversary of the day I bought my house, the day this nightmare began. That date needed to become as significant for him as it was for me. A painful reminder of the deception he had pulled off. That morning, I picked up my phone and ordered a bouquet of flowers to be delivered to his home. I chose a combination of white lilies and red roses, a striking, slightly unsettling mix that would stand out among the usual cheerful arrangements. I made sure the delivery was timed for late afternoon, the kind of hour when his wife would likely be at home, perhaps preparing dinner or relaxing after a long day. The message on the card was simple but carefully chosen. Dear real estate agent's name, remembering you on this, our special day. She has your eyes, love L. I wanted the message to be vague enough to provoke confusion but direct enough to spark immediate suspicion. She has your eyes, the line designed to linger in his mind, to make him question who this mysterious L was and what she might know. Once the flowers were sent, I waited. I imagined the scene, the doorbell ringing, his wife answering, the moment of confusion as she read the card, the awkward silence over dinner, the sideways glances, the unspoken questions. I wanted to create cracks, to weaken the foundation of their relationship one subtle blow at a time. The next day, I checked his social media profiles. I noticed a small but telling change. Several of the photos he had previously posted with his wife were now hidden or deleted. It was a small but satisfying victory. The first seeds of doubt had been planted, but this was just the beginning. I needed to keep the pressure on, to strike again before the initial shock wore off. Seeing the impact of my first move gave me a taste of what was possible. But I knew that a single strike wouldn't be enough. If I truly wanted to unravel his life, I needed to dig deeper, to find new ways to push him to the edge without ever revealing my hand. I wanted him to live in a constant state of unease, never quite sure when the next blow would come. A week later, I decided to escalate my plan. I remembered a small detail from his social media of his favorite whiskey brand. It seemed insignificant at first, just a casual comment on a business networking site, but I knew it could be a powerful trigger. This time, I didn't send the package to his home. I chose his office. I wanted to hit him in a place where he felt safe, where his professional reputation could be at risk. ordered a small, expensive bottle of his favorite whiskey and included a short but pointed note. I still remember the night you first smiled like that. Love, L. I imagined him opening the package at his desk, perhaps with colleagues nearby, trying to hide his shock and confusion. It was a small but powerful move. A reminder that even in his professional life, he wasn't safe from the shadows of his past. A few days later, I checked his social media profiles again. His activity had noticeably decreased. He was posting less, interacting less, and several of his connections had disappeared from his friends list. The cracks were spreading. These small moves were just the beginning. I needed to maintain the pressure, to keep him on edge without giving him a chance to recover. I decided to add another layer to my planned postcards. I found the name of the beach he had visited on his last vacation from an old Facebook post. It was the same trip where he had been photographed with Rachel. I created a series of fake postcards, each one designed to feel deeply personal, like the whisper of a forgotten memory. The first postcard had a picture of a lighthouse overlooking the ocean. On the back, I wrote a simple but unsettling message. Do you still remember those beautiful days we spent on the beach? Love, L. To increase the chances of his wife finding them, I used her maiden name in the address, making it more likely that she would be the one to open the mail. Next, I opened a series of anonymous email accounts. The first message was short but designed to haunt him. Do you ever wonder what could have been? Love, L. I sent these emails at irregular intervals, sometimes weeks apart, to keep him guessing. I wanted him to wonder if this mysterious person had truly moved on, only to have his hopes shattered by another unexpected message. To push him further, I began sending anonymous text messages late at night, when his guard would be down. I saw you. You weren't alone. I haven't forgotten. Each message was carefully timed, designed to strike when he least expected it. I wanted him to feel like he was being watched, like every move he made was being recorded, every mistake cataloged. I quickly realized that constant pressure wasn't always the best strategy. Sometimes, the most effective tactic was to step back, to let him believe it was over, only to strike again when his defenses were down. I began to introduce periods of silence, weeks or even months without any contact. I wanted to give him just enough time to start relaxing, to let his guard down, before hitting him with another unexpected reminder. On one occasion, after several months of silence, I sent him a small notebook with a photo of his younger self on the cover. It was an old, faded picture, the kind of memory that might have seemed innocent at the time but now carried a much darker weight. Inside the front cover, I wrote a simple but chilling message. Sometimes, remembering the past helps shape the future. Love, L. These small but consistent moves kept the pressure building. Each message, each postcard, each silent period was a carefully calculated strike, designed to deepen the cracks in his carefully constructed life. I could feel myself approaching the final step of my plan. There was no turning back now. I had come too far, crossed too many lines. His carefully constructed world, the trust, status, and reputation he had built over the years, was on the verge of collapse. All because of a few small but carefully executed moves. Over the past few months, I had chipped away at his life piece by piece. He had distanced himself from old friends, shut down his social media accounts, and even limited his communication with coworkers. Every time he tried to regain control, I was there, tightening the noose. But the final blow had yet to come. I waited for the perfect moment to strike, his wife's birthday. It was the ideal opportunity to deliver the final, devastating blow. On that day, I arranged for a large, elegant bouquet of white lilies and red roses to be delivered to his office. I chose the flowers carefully as symbols of both love and mourning, a fitting metaphor for the life I was about to shatter. I tucked a small, elegantly written note between the petals. Some secrets can never stay hidden. Love, L. It was a small spark, but I knew better than anyone how a well-timed spark could ignite an uncontrollable blaze. That evening, as they prepared to celebrate, his wife found a small, aged envelope in their mailbox. Inside were old photographs of pictures of her husband, taken years ago, laughing and leaning into another woman. Rachel, his forgotten ghost from the past. On the back of each photo, I had written simple but cutting messages. I wonder if those smiles were ever real. Love, L. Do your eyes still look the same? Love, L. These small, sharp cuts were meant to slice through the very fabric of their relationship, to plant the kind of doubts that never truly go away. By the time she finished going through those photos, I knew her mind would be spinning, her trust shattered, her love poisoned. A few weeks later, their marriage had completely unraveled. Friends started whispering, her family distanced themselves, and he found himself increasingly isolated. Finally, one evening, his wife confronted him, demanding to know who all was. He had no answer. Only stunned silence, and sometimes, silence is the loudest confession. Word spread quickly. Friends turned their backs, colleagues distanced themselves, and even his closest allies began to avoid him. His once thriving career crumbled, his company fell apart, and he found himself alone, abandoned by the life he had built so carefully. After that final move, I withdrew. There was no need for more messages, no more whispered memories, no more reminders of what he had lost. He was left alone, haunted by his past, his mistakes, and the ghosts of the choices he had made. As for me, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat back on my porch, and let the cool evening breeze wash over me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and found the peace I had long been searching for. Some secrets can never stay hidden. Love, L.